I am back with another video covering a different workplace this time. This was a job I had about 4 years ago called, Telcon, as you can see right there on the Google page. I worked there as a lead caster. Lead casting basically is melting down. Um, what I did was I melted down bars of lead that they ordered that weren't purified enough. So I melted them down. I removed the impurities from the metal and poured them into molds. There's thousands of different molds they had there. And I it was basically making like a sandcastle. And then I transported those molds to the CNC machinist that we had working there to further process them into medical parts for companies like Siemens and other medical equipment manufacturers. Because as you know, lead is a radiation deterrent. But if you don't already know too, lead is also toxic to the human body if you have too much in it. And you'd figure a workplace like this, where you're dealing with hazardous materials like lead, where you need to go to a hospital every 2 months to get your blood test done to determine whether you are getting too much lead poisoning or not, you'd figure that they give you more than $16 an hour. But as you already know from all these other workplaces I've been at, common sense is not common. And so I held out for a year, hoping that if I busted my ass enough that I'd get a decent pay raise after a year of working there. Because I'm going to tell you now, they didn't hire anybody else to work with me. I was alone. I was my only coworker in my department. Now, one thing I can say is my newly appointed supervisor, Ed Borch, who magically became a supervisor right before I got hired in, I was his first employee. Well, I had a lot of issues with this dude because he was a new supervisor and didn't know how to really talk to people or deal with them. At least he knew how to do my job. Because you can't say that about most supervisors these days. At least the dude had some sort of respect for me, and I had some sort of respect for him. It went both ways. Uh, Now, with all the issues I had with this dude, because he didn't know how to talk to his employee, because I was his employee, because he was my boss, he didn't know how to talk to me, but I feel like we had a little bit of mutual respect for each other, in the slightest, at least. Now, I busted my ass. Like I said, I stayed at least a month or two ahead because I was by myself. Otherwise, the entire ship would sink and I would be screwed. They refused to hire anybody else or make it a priority because we had two shifts working there. I was on first shift and then there was another guy on second shift. Now, about 10 months into my job, this is where shit starts flying, is they try merging the shifts together and getting rid of second shift. Now, three-fourths of second shift decide to quit. So my one coworker I thought I was gonna get decides to put in his 2 week notice and leave. So my only chance of hope is gone. I'm already trying to leave that place because I've been asking for help. 10 months in, I've been there for a while. I've been asking for help. I've been egging them on to hire some people. They just don't care. So you'd figure somebody who's supplying about 16 machinists, which is 16 people worth of work, will get burnt out pretty fast, right? Well, no, because I was a 20-year-old young man, they thought that I could handle anything, I guess. So I held out for a year, and then I got my pay raise I really was expecting. I was hoping it was going to be a dollar or two since they couldn't hire people for shit or keep them. No one wanted to do my job. I figured if I'd showed enough work ethic, because I was working doing special projects for engineering and bending over backwards for this place, that they'd do the same for me. But no, this was one of my first two jobs I've ever had as a blue collar worker, and it revealed to my eyes how gruesome the industry can truly be. Because the people in charge of every single job like this that is blue collar just can't can't use common sense. So I got Google Photos up over here, and I just want you to bear with me while I go through them with you. Some of the photos I still have of working there at this place. Now, this is what my typical 2 hours worth of work would look like. That's what I would pour into molds that are shaped like this. That's the work order document right there. Where it was going, who's going to run it next, right there would scan that. This is the molten metal. You can see how hot it is. 300 degrees. Now, I'd be flipping these things right here. Right here. You can see it weighs 333 pounds. That was this on the scale. Like I said, or I didn't say yet, this place was pretty easy for me. It was laid back until my boss, Ed Borch, would come over and try to get me back into place like I was a dog. Now, here's me flipping these things. 4 years ago, I would say. And here's another red flag about the place. Okay. Um. Yeah. See all that? See all this dust, fog, whatever? That's not fog. See, my job, we would use to blast the fumes outside. The toxic fumes from the lead. If you were to breathe those in, you'd probably die. If you breathe in enough of it. Now, what was funny too is how we shoot them out this exhaust fan, and there was a steel company right down here, which is still there. There was a steel company down there. They'd be calling and complaining every fucking day. And so one day, that company decided to call my company and complain. And this is why I left. Okay, so I'll tell you right now, this is the only reason why I left. I was surviving at this place just fine. I left because they told me to stop melting down the residual like cutoffs from the machines, because the machines would take these blocks right here. The machines would take these blocks and all the impurities or whatever they didn't use or the scrap, I'd remelt down into the pots to save lead and space too. But I was told that we couldn't do that anymore. So the scraps, the little chips, would start piling up because I couldn't melt them back down and get rid of them because the exhaust fans were too much for the company next door. Now, instead of thinking rationally and I don't know, opening up night shift or having me burn them at a time where they're not open next door, my head boss Ron, who had a thumb for a finger, decided to tell me to just deal with it. And the machinists were going to start dumping the scraps onto my work floor, into my workplace. I'm not cleaning that shit up. How am I going to work with my entire floor being filled with lead shavings. I don't know. But that's still not why I left, by the way, too. Get this. So I asked around for a solution if any of my management had any sort of ideas of how to solve this issue. This dude, Ron, decided to tell me, are you an improviser or a complainer? Now, because that old man decided to say that, I decided to improvise my way out of there to the next morning and walk out of the building and never come back. So I improvised. See, because it seems, like I said, management never has any, like, people skills whatsoever. Now, the next thing that really kicked me in my nads was this right here. Matt is a hard worker and valued team member. I would like blah, 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 blah. Now, I didn't get distracted. See, I saw the machinists. I was out on the open floor, like, in my free time. Free time, okay? Break. When people aren't doing anything. Free time, in general. So, like, we'd have a holiday or something, right? People would clean up early. The machinist would just clean up early, right? So I went out there with them to chill out with my coworkers that I could barely talk to because they were in a whole entire different part of the building. So I was standing there on my phone with them. There was like 12 of us in a circle, chilling out, standing on our phones, right? Okay, you're still following me, right? Out of those 12 people, here comes my boss. He sees me from his assembly department. Ed Borch walks over through those 10 people that were on their phones, 11 people, yells at me and tells me to go back to work. Proceeds to go and chat up with them instead after he tells me to go back to work. And this dude had issues with me whenever I wasn't working. If I was taking a breather, if I was drinking water, the dude would come over and yell at me. And because it seems like whoever's teaching all these new supervisors or management team nowadays decides to teach them that you need to micromanage somebody until they want to quit. But I dealt with it. Because like I said, I was there for a year. Until they decided to try to sabotage my workplace. That was it. I was gone. All because Ron decided that Ron, who was the general manager of the building. Oh, I got one more Google photo to show you. Okay? So, this was my review right here. Okay, so this really pissed me off. The only thing I got a 5 in was discipline issues, which makes no sense. And so I went and asked my bosses about this, specifically the one who gave me the review, and they said that they couldn't give me a 5, or they couldn't give me a decent review because then they'd have to give me more than 50 cents an hour raise, which is so stupid. This is the second workplace I work at, and I'm already getting screwed over like this. That's what they said, though. And if I would have known it then, I would have sued the shit out of this place. It seems like a lot of places these days around here need that. But yeah, I've got like 3 reasons why I left. This is one of them right here. The fact that I busted my ass, worked by myself the whole entire year, was 2 months ahead. Like, even flexibility. Works with engineering on new jobs. Wow, so that's not an excellent, that's above average. Wow, holy crap. So, you know what raise I got? You know what raise I got? 50 cents. I got a 50-cent raise for putting up with all that bullcrap. Keep up the good work. Little did they know I was gone the next month. And this is also a guide of how to lose good workers in a matter of 2 seconds. And for the person who wanted one of these videos made, I'm sorry I did not live up to your expectations. I'm sorry that I did not like this place, but just know it wasn't your fault. And I know who you are, I remember who you are, and that I liked working with you. You are not one of my reasons why I hated the place. You are not one of the reasons why I left. And if you are still there, I hope that you could go around and share this video with other people. I don't care. That's why I'm making this, so people can see it. And hopefully something can change. Because if this shit's still going on, something needs to change.